Unless it looks bad.
No,
it
it
looks
looks
good.
it looks exactly the same. Miguel, I can't see your hair because of the hat.
Yeah, that's
I
valid.
feel like I don't know what my hair looks like. Maybe I need the
Looks
hat.
good.
Give me the hat. Oh, I got it. Nice. Okay, and then maybe
Maybe like a little bit like
that. Yes. Yes. I feel like I'm ready now.
You ready?
to start.
Let's do it.
Good after morning, and welcome to On the Dome, a podcast about how non-expert college-age youth think. And today I'm wearing this very jazzy hat, and you guys are dressed very jazzily. And so we're going to talk about jazz. Exciting. You guys like jazz?
I do like jazz.
You like
yeah.
jazz? Let's learn some other things about you. So, who are you?
My name's Ellery Stoller. I'm from Manchester, Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
Go to MIT, class of 2025. Majoring in math and computer science.
Nice.
I am Miguel Talamantes. I am from San Diego, California. I am also an MIT student. And I am majoring in 2A6, which is mechanical engineering with an emphasis on electrical.
Very nice. And both of you are very into jazz, and both of you play the saxophone.
That we
Those
do.
things
Yes, ma'am.
correlated. Which came first, the saxophone or the jazz?
For me, it was the saxophone. It was 1 year saxophone. I started playing in 5th grade. All right, so I started playing in 5th grade, and then I actually stopped after 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandpa owns this little storage unit in New Hampshire. And when somebody doesn't pay their rent on a storage unit for a really long time, you're allowed to repossess it, right?
Ooh, cool.
So it was sometime in the middle of 6th grade. We were over in New Hampshire, and this is always something fun, little grandfather bonding, So we'd crack open a nice fresh storage unit, and inside this storage unit was a saxophone.
Oh.
So I'd stop playing, and then middle of 6th grade we'd find the saxophone, and I'd pick it back up again, and then that's how I got back into saxophone, and then I joined the jazz band in 6th grade.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it was meant to be.
I guess so.
How did you, was it jazz first or saxophone first?
For me, it was saxophone first as well.
Mm-hmm.
I remember 6th grade, 7th grade, I heard the saxophone on the radio, and I was like, dang, that sounds good. And then I asked my parents, can we get a saxophone so I could play in the band? And I don't remember, I think we bought one. Yeah. And I've used this same one since. I've never gotten a new saxophone. But it's it was then I got it in 7th grade. And then I started playing in 7th grade, and did the middle school, ensemble or whatever. Then freshman year, when I got into high school, I got into jazz because I was in the marching band, and it was fun. But then I was gonna quit the next year, and I was like, okay, I should find some replacement because I still want to do music. And a friend of mine told me about this jazz conservatory, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a try. And then I joined, and it was super cool, and that's how I got into jazz. And there's no going back now.
Now, once you're in, you're in. How different would you say playing jazz is to the regular high school band experience for us? I've never played jazz. I'm a singer, but I've never played jazz.
I think the biggest difference is probably just a lot more emphasis on improvisation, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So having that kind of creative freedom to mess around with stuff, and there's no wrong notes in jazz. So repetition legitimizes, right?
Yeah.
Adam Neely.
Mm-hmm.
So if we play a wrong note, let's play it again. Whereas if you
and then it's jazz.
And then it's jazz, exactly. You gotta hit those blue notes. But no, so having that kind of freedom, just kind of explore those different sounds is probably the biggest difference. In
That
my
sounds
opinion.
intimidating, though. You just get up there and you have to make something up. What was your first experience with that improvising?
I don't even remember, honestly. I mean, I can think back to experiences of me taking a solo and improvising. And I remember, towards the very beginning, it's hard. It's a lot harder than you think. Because there's, it's not, they don't just play random notes. It's you have to learn the language, and then you have to learn, it's there's so many things to learn. You got your major scales, and you, build off of that. There's, thousands of different directions to go in. So it's there's one quote, I forget who it was, Herbie Hancock or something, and he was you're supposed to learn jazz. Learning jazz is you learn all of the technical things, and you learn as much as you can, and then at the very end, you just forget everything and just play. And obviously, you don't forget everything, but like, it's more about like the thought process of like what you want to play versus okay, what do I know? What can I play versus what should I play? What do I want to play?
Interesting. That reminds me of this whole thing where it's like when you're learning something, it's like you have unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and then unconscious competence. I feel like I messed up those words because that's like a tongue twister.
I think you got them all.
Oh, well, hopefully. But I feel like that sounds a lot like what you were describing, where you have to learn all these things, and then eventually when it becomes natural, then that's when it actually starts to get into the artistry of it. Where do you feel like you guys are on that scale?
Probably conscious incompetence.
Conscious incompetence?
I can't comprehend all of those okay, I'm kind of low. That's all I can process.
I feel like you guys are probably underselling yourselves. Maybe you're so good that you're into the unconscious.
I don't think
so.
How long have you guys been playing?
Well, I took a year off basically, or 2 years. I don't know. Well, I stopped once COVID hit. I was like, I kind of stopped playing because I was like, I kind of lost interest. And then now I've like been getting back into it because I'm like, wow, there's like music everywhere now again. I should keep playing. And so I guess subtracting like a year or two, probably like 8, 9, 10, 11, was that like 6 years?
6 years. Let's go with that.
Yeah. Is this just like jazz or saxophone in general or any?
Probably like, okay, let's
or like
say
when you
saxophone.
started like saxophone? Okay. Yeah, so
you guys, you play very well. I have not heard you play because you didn't bring your saxophone.
That is
and
true.
And that was a mistake.
He plays much better than I do.
I'm not that good.
I don't know about that. I've heard some of your videos. So how long have you been playing?
Yeah, so I started in the 6th grade, and I've been playing pretty regularly since then. But also, I never really took lessons or anything, because like in middle school and high school, I never had private lessons. It was always just like things from like the band director was like, here's a tip, or like section leaders like, here's a tip. So I guess like since 6th grade I've been playing regularly, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I guess about the same, except 7, 8 years, but I'm not like nearly as good as I like should be for having played that long, if you know what I mean.
I always feel like that with, obviously I didn't do jazz, I didn't do saxophone, but I did do music, and I did singing all through my life. I always feel like I'm not as good as I should be for how long I've been doing it, because I've been doing singing. I've been singing since 3rd grade, so like 12 years maybe.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a struggle. But I feel like the hardest thing now is finding time to like keep it going and practice and that sort of thing. I feel like I've become much more of a music listener to like enjoy music rather than like back home I would just be singing all the time. But you can't really do that when you're in a dorm. You sing really loud. So I feel like now I'm gravitating towards just like listening to music, and I've been listening to a lot more music. Have you guys been listening to any jazz?
I think that was basically the situation for me this year, because I didn't bring my saxophone, and I ultimately regretted it. But my logic was like, okay, this is MIT. I'm not going to have time for saxophone, so I didn't bring it. And like, ironically, I'm now taking a jazz class. I go to like concerts for jazz all the time. Like, I might as well just bring my saxophone.
You talk about jazz all the time.
That is true. Yes.
Yeah, I'm in a relatively similar situation. I didn't try out for the jazz band this year. It's kind of a longer story as to why I didn't. But I am in the video game orchestra now, so I still play some saxophone. But it's jazz adjacent at best. But yeah, I've also just been like going to concerts, listening to a lot of jazz on my own, just like on Spotify. Actually, it was probably like 3 weeks ago now. I had 2 friends independently of each other on the same day ask me for jazz recommendations. So that was fun. So I was building a little like jazz recommendations playlist.
So that of course begs the question: what jazz should I be listening to?
Oh boy.
I feel like I'm opening up the door to like a long list.
That's a lot of doors.
There's a lot of like subgenres of jazz too.
Right.
You know?
So how would you, okay, well tell me this then. What artists got you into jazz? Where did you start in terms of your listening journey?
What album's Chameleon on? Headhunters?
Yes.
Headhunters.
Headhunters.
That album, Herbie Hancock.
Herbie
I agree with
Hancock.
that.
Yeah.
That's actually, I probably got into
Watermelon Man and Chameleon.
Yep.
Were like
Well, you're
two of the
on
first
Instagram.
songs.
Is that what that's from?
Yes, that is what
You
that's
were
from.
Dr. Watermelon Man.
Dr.
on
Watermelon
Instagram.
Never
Man.
pieced that together. Holy.
Actually, my Instagram username is quite unique. I got the doctor from when I impersonated an Indian doctor in my middle school. And the Watermelon Man
about
from
that.
Herbie Hancock. And then I just put them together, and I haven't changed it.
Interesting. I want to hear more about that other story later, but we'll move on for
It's
now.
a story for another time.
Yes.
So Herbie Hancock, both of you, you also quoted him today.
I
so-
did. I'm a big fan of his.
Okay, tell me a
Yes.
little bit more about him.
Tell me a bedtime story. Sorry. Great Herbie Hancock song. That is Herbie Hancock, right?
I think so.
Okay.
We'll go with it. We'll put a fact check. But
Okay. We'll put a little check mark.
tell me about Herbie Hancock.
Whoa. Well, for starters, he's one of the few older jazz musicians that's still alive. I think there's a lot of really good musicians. I think right now is a perfect time for us because we're surrounded by a lot of musicians that are still alive that had these incredible experiences, playing with Miles Davis and people like that. A lot of them already passed away, but there's a lot of musicians that are still alive and they played with those people. And Herbie Hancock is one of them. He was actually he played with everyone. It was I can't even imagine what it's like being him right now. History. I don't know.
His style is also really interesting because he's obviously this incredible jazz artist, but he kind of brings in a lot of these other kind of subgenres. He's fusion, the intro to Watermelon Man.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That train whistle sound. He just uses a lot of really interesting sounds, I guess.
Interesting.
To create his songs.
That sounds fascinating. So it was Herbie Hancock, and then did you guys feel like you went from there into more of the main, the more traditional jazz, or did you guys go off into subgenres in terms of your listening?
So once I got into high school, the little jazz ensemble that I was in, we have this one drummer, Evan Hosley. He's at Berklee College of Music now, but he was really
so right down the street.
Yeah, he was really into weird stuff. Tigran Hamasyan is this crazy Armenian jazz pianist. He has this one song 2116 as the time signature.
Oh dear Lord.
Yeah, so he started kind of messing around with a lot of that stuff, and our jazz ensemble was me and 4 other kids, so it was pretty small. So he had a lot of influence in that. So a lot of the music that he listened to, I started listening to. I don't know if you know Snarky Puppy. Do you know Snarky Puppy? Yeah, so they're this jazz fusion. I cannot describe their style. I find it so interesting. They're one of my favorite bands.
I feel a lot of the jazz that's kind of in the progress of being made right now, you just don't have a definition for.
Agreed.
Yes, it's harder and harder to, in any music nowadays, put genres on things, especially because, for me, how I discover music nowadays is a lot through Spotify and, what it recommends and the different playlists and stuff. And because of that, I feel all of these genres are blending. And I imagine in something with as rich of a history and as many different geographical and historical influences such as jazz, I feel that's probably even more true. Where it's how do you even describe jazz generally?
That's the age-old question. Every single famous jazz musician always gets asked the question, how do you describe jazz?
If you have to describe it, you don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's if you have to say it, you don't have it.
Yeah. I mean, at its foundation, you can look at the history and look at jazz. Okay, jazz is black music, historically speaking, but over the time period, it just so many things happen. You can't summarize that.
It's a lot of history. It's a lot of, and I feel in a similar way, it's the same thing with the unconscious competence thing. It's you learn the history, you learn all of these different places, but in the end, it's just a feeling when you listen to it. I think that even for me as a very casual jazz listener, the feeling that you get when you hear it is so indescribable that even without the history you have that, and then I feel the history is going towards you have to understand that to be able to recreate it. Perhaps. I don't know. You have to tell me. Do you feel the history, understanding stuff like that, has influenced how you then play?
I think it has. I mean, a lot of the stuff is you have to understand the context of there's like certain music actually just recently we went to a concert. Actually, me and Ellery, we went to a Charles Mingus concert.
Yeah, Mingus tribute concert, centennial concert.
And there's a lot of music that's like what Mingus did. That's like it has so much, like, I don't know what to say, like background to it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the music he wrote had like political purposes or like had specific intent, and I don't know. There's a lot of context.
Yeah, a lot of the music is kind of like set to the historical backdrop of like civil rights movement. So yeah, just like seeing, I don't know, just kind of understanding like the backdrop to like the context, like what was going on, like when it was being written, when it was being performed, like seeing the new takes on it now is really interesting.
So like the layering of influences. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, because like a lot of like the jazz standards, like every single like great jazz musician has done like some version of all these standards, you know, and just seeing how every single one of them has like a different take on it is that's kind of tangential to what the question was, but that's also like an interesting topic to go into.
The more you get out of it. Well, you were telling me about apparently jazz also has inside jokes.
Ah, yes. Yeah, the lick. That's another.
You want to tell us about that?
How did the lick become so?
I actually don't know like who first played it or stuff like that. I just know it's an inside joke. It's just funny. Like if you ever go to a jazz event and you could hear, if you hear the lick, you'll like see all the musicians smirking or whatever.
Yeah, actually, I had like this exact experience. There's this little jazz club down in like Brattleboro, Vermont. So I went there with my dad one time. It's about like an hour's drive, but they played it and like made it like relatively obvious, and everybody in like everybody listening just started like giggling.
Yeah,
it was so funny. My dad after it asked me, and he was like, "What was that? Like, why did everybody like laugh in the middle of the concert?" Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, he played the lick."
Yes, it's definitely. I feel like that sort of thing, and like knowing the history would probably make it more of a community inside joke type of thing. How do you get into that though? Because for me, it's the question of it's so much to get into. Now you both said Herbie Hancock. That's where you start. But how do you get into the jazz community if you don't play an instrument, such as myself? I do not play an instrument.
Well, in its history, jazz is music by musicians for musicians. So basically the answer is no, you can't get it. No, that's not true.
I am a musician.
Yeah, no, like it started with swing, right? Swing was like big in the 30s, and it kind of morphed into like jazz, into what jazz is now. And there was like a bunch of little phases that it kind of went through. Like there was swing, there was bebop, there was hard bop, there was like a ton of different genres that were going on. What was I saying?
You were talking about how to get into jazz. And
right,
yes.
Right. So it really just depends on what kind of music you like. Like, Herbie Hancock wasn't actually like the main reason I got into it. I started with Herbie Hancock, but I also got into like hard bop and stuff that was just like really
fast, like Charlie Parker kind of stuff. Or
I didn't like bebop at first. I thought it was like too annoying. All I heard was like, and then like after like a year or two of playing, I was like, God damn. Like I had like more respect for it.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I think I'd agree with this on the whole. Like songs like Levitation 21 and stuff like that, sometimes it feels a little contrived at times. It feels like you're doing certain things just to be able to like show that you can do them. But from a musician's perspective, like, as someone who like plays saxophone, like when I hear Charlie Parker play, like I have so much respect for it, you know? So like coming from it as somebody who plays, I think definitely can change your perspective like, on how you listen to the music a lot.
You can see first, like, at first listen, it's just how it sounds, but then you understand what it takes to make it sound like that.
Right.
And that adds another level.
Yeah.
And then you understand the history of why it sounds like that. And then you understand the community, like, and then layers and layers and layers. So would you say that, like, because for me, jazz is something that you can just listen to and enjoy, but would you say, how has your enjoyment increased with each layer? Would you say, how much does each layer add to it?
I feel like it's definitely more of an inside joke kind of thing. Like, the more you play, the more you enjoy it. It's, like I said, it's a music by musicians for musicians. So I feel like the more you get into it by playing, you enjoy it more because you know how to appreciate it more. Like, if you don't play like a jazz instrument, you won't understand all of the things that are going on.
Right.
You'll just hear it and be like, oh, that sounds nice.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, like, if you play the instrument, you get into it and stuff like that, you're like, wow, like, he just played, like, a tritone substitution and, like, did all this stuff. And you're like, wow, that was incredible.
Yeah, it's all stuff that's, like, part of the language that, like, you know, I'm at a point where, like, I'm not fluent in the language. But, like, hearing somebody who is fluent, like, it's so beautiful. And just, like, yeah, just, like, that kind of appreciation for it. Like, I don't know, there are times just, like, driving to school, like, sometimes I would just throw on, like, Sirius XM on just, like, the jazz station or something. And, like, hearing these, like, incredible jazz musicians, it was so inspiring at times, but it was, like, so demoralizing sometimes. It was like, wow, I will never be this good. Like, this is this is incredible. But you know, just listening to it, it's really interesting.
It's an art form, definitely.
Yeah.
So now, taking the conversation somewhere else, I feel like a lot of what you're describing is very different from most of modern music. But there are definitely influences in some modern music of jazz. I mean, it's a foundational music style of America. A lot of everything here is probably foundationally, you know, built on it. But where do you see, like, do you have any, like, modern, like, probably, like, more popular musicians that you can see some of their jazz influence that you like? Or do you wish there were more?
There's a lot of modern musicians doing jazz, like Snarky Puppy, like you were saying. I think there is going to be some kind of modernization. I sure hope so, because I want jazz to come back. It's the 30s again. We're in a pandemic. You know, let's we're already here. Let's bring back jazz.
I am here for that, if only for the hat.
I think I'd agree with that on the whole. I think in, like, you know, modern, like, pop music and stuff, I've yet to see, like, much, like, jazz influence. You know, like, every once in a while, like, you hear a little, like, saxophone solo, but, like, it's rare. Like, it was a lot bigger in, like, the 70s. You listen to, like, 70s music and, like, having, like, brass instruments and, like, woodwind stuff in.
Right, but it's all electronic now.
Yeah, a lot of electronic stuff now. You know, obviously there's, like, a lot of times, like, improvisation sometimes, but, like, again, like, this is not in, like, modern pop music. You don't hear somebody, like, improvising over, like, an Olivia Rodrigo song. Like, you know.
No shade against Olivia Rodrigo is great, but she's not
improvising. She's not
very
jazz.
jazzy.
She's not jazz.
No. I think that's definitely true. I feel like you rarely hear live instruments even in, like, concerts. Like, the singing is often live. Sometimes it's not. But there's not as many, like, live, like, you know, brass instruments. And it's such I remember we went and we were all in Briggs Field and you were playing your saxophone. It was so nice to hear an instrument, like a live instrument, played well.
Yeah.
It's very nice. This is why you sounded great. You're a great player.
You got to hear Miguel play.
No,
I am so excited.
Why are you directing it to me? You're a good player.
I've seen a video of you play, and I'm very excited. And I'm really mad that you didn't bring your saxophone.
I'm bringing it next semester, most likely.
You better. Because, see, I have no choice but to bring
my
instrument.
Your instrument.
Mm-hmm. My instrument comes with me everywhere. But, yeah, we definitely have to have, like, a music night.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Outside.
Outside?
Outside?
I think so.
Next weekend is going to be relatively warm.
Yes. And then do something.
Sax duet.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be fun.
We can sing something. It'd be so much fun. I feel like we have a lot of musicians in our friend group. I feel like there are a lot of musicians at MIT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay, this is a whole nother conversation, but I feel like music is, like, directly intertwined with, like, physics and, like, math and, like, everything.
Oh, totally. Because, like, even the relations between, like, octaves and fifths have to do with, like, Fibonacci numbers. Mm-hmm. And then we're learning in physics in 802 right now a lot about wave equations and springs and resonance and all of that stuff. And it's just music. It's just, it's like a piano. It's so fascinating. It's so exciting to learn about all of that.
It is.
Yes. I want a class on the physics of music. I want to take it. I want to take that class. I'm sure we have it.
I'm sure there's something. I'm trying to rack my brain.
This sounds fun.
Yes.
And we have one on the anthropology of sound. Different
the
anthropology of sound.
What does that cover?
I don't know, but I want to take it. I think, like, the average student enrollment is, like, close to 4. But I saw that and it looked so interesting.
But those are the classes, you know? That's what you want to be here for.
Yeah, like those niche classes that are, like, so interesting.
And you know those 4 people are going to be the 4
I'm
most
sure.
fascinating people
I'm
that
sure.
you've ever met. Yes. I feel like, especially here, too, because this is STEM school, but I feel like especially talking about humanities and the arts here is so interesting because you get all these perspectives from people who are very much, like, left-brained or, like, very non-artistic people and their view on art, and then you get these people who have both sides, and I feel like it's definitely different perspectives, a lot of math analogies, and well, just in every conversation there's math analogies with us.
Yeah, it's fun. Like I'm part of Concourse, which is like the humanities learning community at MIT, and it's really interesting because, like, not like a high proportion, but like a surprising number of people in there come from like fine arts high schools and stuff like that, and like now find themselves at MIT. So just like talking to them about their perspective on, like, the humanities and math and sciences and like the intersection between them and like what good it can have for society has been like really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that most of like the why has to come from humanities, like why we're doing all of this. I feel like I'm thinking all the time about, for me, it's definitely like influenced by design. I'm in Design Plus, the first year learning community, which is why we have such a lovely space to film in. Thank you. But I think a lot about design in everything I do. And I'm sure that you guys have similar with either with music or with other art forms. It just influences everything.
Yes. Most definitely.
Yeah. It's fun to talk about. It's very interesting. And it makes it a lot more fun to relate that sort of stuff to then, like, our homework. Like, we were talking about Furrier Series.
Yeah.
Furrier Series are so cool.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. Especially when you learn about the same stuff in 2 or 3 of your
Yeah.
classes.
Yeah, and it all overlaps.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any of those experiences lately?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, 3 classes are all talking about, like, circuits and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all, like, coming together. It's, like, capacitors and resistance and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, you really like circuits.
I do. That is fair.
It's very
All
exciting.
circuits classes.
You were, last time, not this time, but last time you were wearing your jeans that had circuits on them.
I was, yeah. I'm not wearing them this time.
No, you're more jazzy.
I am.
Less circuit-y.
Yeah, I mean, I've also had some overlap in my classes. 1803 differential equations and 16002 intro to computer science and engineering. It's a lot of like just like modeling stuff has been
yes.
really interesting.
Yes, it's so much fun. For me, it's the Furrier Series, and it's in kind of in 802. You're learning about like the basic sinusoidals and like springs and electromagnetic waves and describing it through that. And then in 603, which is Intro to EECS through medical device design, we're learning about, actually, first in 1803, then we're actually learning about Furrier Series and what they are mathematically. And then in 603, we're learning about how to use Furrier Series to like remove noise from an ECG signal to then, or like to remove noise from like a glucometer signal to then tell how much glucose is in someone's blood to give them insulin. And it's all coming together, and it's like so fascinating. And I feel like because of that, I just want to talk about Furrier Series all the time now. I've shown you that.
I'm pretty sure you showed me like 4 times already. I'm pretty sure you like them.
Yeah, I've showed you that 1 3 blue, 1 brown video on
So
Furrier
good.
Series. So many. I've
It's a good
shown
video.
like
It's a good video.
It's not just you. I've shown probably everyone in this room and in most rooms I'm in that video because I'm really excited about Furrier Series and they're very cool. But it's all coming together.
Yeah. All right, this is very tangentially related.
Yes.
3 blue, 1 brown though. Like
I
they
know.
they make you feel like you are discovering this stuff on your own. It makes you feel like it's so intuitive. They make it just.
It's beautiful, and they're like graphics.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh my god. Related, Vihart. Do either of you watch Vihart? Oh,
I do not.
Is it a boat or something?
Oh my god, you guys. She is the granddaughter of some famous mathematician, and she also does math stuff, but she describes herself as a math musician. And she does YouTube videos. She did an amazing one on Fibonacci, like a series on Fibonacci. She did one on hexaflexagons. She does a bunch of them on math and music and like how the frequencies relate to each other. And she like draws them like on notebook paper. Like it's like sort of a draw your lifestyle, but it's so fascinating. And you guys, I'm gonna see, this is the next thing that I'm gonna be obsessed with showing you guys. I'm gonna show you guys Vi-Heart videos as soon as this episode is over because you guys are gonna love them. There's so many good like YouTube channels like that. 3 Blue 1 Brown, Vi-Heart,
Veritasium.
Oh yeah, so fascinating. There's not. So do you guys have any jazz YouTube channels? Going back to the topic.
Adam Neely is not like strictly jazz. He kind of explores a lot of stuff in music, but Sun Gazers, his band, like it's like jazz, funk, fusion. Again, hard to describe like his exact genre.
Yeah.
Adam Neely.
I can't think of a YouTube channel specifically. I feel like there's not much. Well, actually, no. I guess just like channels that have like Miles Davis written on it, or like just albums and stuff.
Maybe you should start one. I feel like you have enough to say, you guys.
I feel like there's been. This isn't like jazz commentary necessarily as like on a YouTube video, but I feel like there's been a big uptick in like channels getting popular with like transcription videos. I don't know. Yeah. What is it, like George Collier? Is that
Jacob Collier?
I know Jacob Collier. I feel like there's a YouTube channel called George Collier. I could be wrong. But there's always just like...
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's his brother.
Is it?
I think so.
Like, these transcriptions that he does are so good.
I think I've seen a few of those. Funny that you mentioned Jacob Collier because my choir director this was in the second choir I was in 11th and 12th grade. I was in a sort of vocal jazzy kind of group. It was just 8 or 9 of us, and it was all like really dense, all girls, jazzy type vocal harmonies, like 6-7 part harmonies, and there were like 8 or 9 of us. It was so much fun. And our teacher, who was in both of my choirs when she was growing up, she is now a Grammy-nominated composer who has worked and actually on her new album is collaborating with Jacob Collier.
Whoa.
That is so cool.
That's incredible.
So I'm 2 degrees away from Jacob Collier.
Your Collier number is 2?
Yes, exactly.
That is so cool.
Yes, very cool. But yes, I've seen some of those videos. I think it's his brother.
That reminds me of one other thing that I was going to talk about. Jazz musicians are like surprisingly approachable. Like that's one thing, like with all these like really big musicians, like whatever, like people that are modern today, like Doja Cat, I don't know, or just like other random musicians, you can't like walk up to them and be like, hey, how's it going?
No,
but
you cannot do that.
These jazz musicians are like, they're very personal people.
So down to earth on the whole. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the people who are like really into actually like just like a couple weeks ago, me and some friends went to New York City and we went to Blue Note and we saw Ron Carter and we got a picture with him. And he was like this super down to earth guy. It's crazy how approachable jazz musicians are because they're not like world famous people. Well, they are. They should be. But they like act like regular people.
Right.
So it's like you can still appreciate them and like talk to them and like.
Very tangentially related. Just like on that topic, this is something I love about like MIT. You know, there are some people here who are like absolutely cracked as far as like academic stuff is concerned.
Yes.
But everybody here is just like so normal and like you wouldn't even know like necessarily unless you like talk with them about like their like there's a big like separation a lot of the time I guess between like you know academic setting and like personal experiences, and I think like that same thing is true with these like jazz musicians on the whole. There's like a not a disconnect, but there's like a separation between like you're a cool approachable person and you're also this like world-renowned musician.
It's definitely interesting because what you made me think of was the whole thing that you were saying about music for musicians by musicians, and I think that might be one of the reasons it's so easy to connect because you get to connect on a purely music level, not just a celebrity level or a fan and a artist, but it's really like musician to musician. And I think that now trying to relate it to your point, that's one of it's definitely such a cool thing about MIT is it's not like, you know, AMC winner to Science Olympiad winner. It's just person to person, student to student, learner to learner.
Right.
And because of that, the conversations are so good.
yeah, everybody at MIT like is here to learn and like enjoys learning and has a passion for learning. Anybody who's interacting with like a jazz musician like will have like a passion for jazz or music on the whole, and just like wants to be like everybody has something to learn from everybody else.
Right.
You know.
Even like when we met him, the first question he asked us was, "So what instrument do you guys play?" Like just expecting us to play an instrument, because like you can only know so much about him without being a musician.
And was he right?
Yeah, he was right.
Yeah, it's so great to have those kind of conversations, and hopefully this is one of the places that you can have those conversations. That's definitely why I tried to make this podcast, is to have epic conversations with epic people like you guys.
Thank you.
Very epic, very jazzy. I feel very jazzy right now with my hat.
As you should.
Yes. And I think with that, we're going to call it. So thank you so much for listening. And this has been On the Dome. You did it. Yay.
Nice.
Good? Maybe? Yeah. I think we got it.